Good afternoon. This is John Armwood. I'm back again for my second volume of podcasts here on the Armwood Opinion channel. And today's topic is American history since World War II, particularly focusing on race relations and the impact of technology on race relations. So we're talking about American history from World War II to the present. We're going to hit a few events. It's not going to be very long, don't worry. And we're going to talk about the role that technology has played in the evolution and change of race relations. And the first thing I want to talk about is World War II and what that meant. World War II started in Europe, as we know, around 1938, 1939. Germany invaded Poland and other areas of Eastern Europe. Prime Minister Chamberlain in England had tried to negotiate a deal with Nazi Germany, and it didn't work out. And he went ahead and conceded Poland to Germany, and they didn't stop. And they ended up going all the way into Russia. But the key thing I want to talk about is the United States, our home. The United States was attacked by Japan on December 7th of 1941. It was during a time of negotiations between the U.S. and Japan. And there had been a breakdown because the U.S. and Great Britain, they had blockaded Japan, and Japan survives on foreign oil. It doesn't have any of its own. So to say that Japan attacked out of the clear blue is just not true. So we have oil being used for vehicles and industry in the West, technology. They got the oil from the Middle East. Japan was also an industrialized power. It got the oil. And I use that term Middle East advisedly because people are used to using it. I think it's a very Eurocentric term. The area is Southwest Asia and North Africa. If you look at the continent of Asia as being the center of the world. And then from that perspective, it would be in the southwestern corner of Asia and into North Africa, where the oil supplies are. So if Japan were cut off from oil by sea, that would be a very difficult thing. And that's what the United States was threatening to do. So Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. What's interesting about that is the date. It was December 7th, 1941. Very soon afterwards, believe it or not, on December 12th, 1 week later of 1941, the United States U.S. Attorney General's office in Washington issued circular number 3591. And what did this circular talk about? Involuntary servitude, slavery, and peonage. Well, I know some of you really believed it when they said slavery ended at the end of the Civil War with the 13th Amendment in 1865. Guess what? They didn't tell you the truth, like a lot of things in American history. They didn't tell you the truth. Because according to this Attorney General document, it was still going on December 12th of 1941. This is what it says. I'm going to read just the first paragraph. Involuntary servitude, slavery, and peonage. A summary of the department files on alleged peonage violations discloses numerous instances of prosecution denied. In other words, they didn't do anything about it. The legal services. The prosecution declined by the United States Attorney. The chief reason stated as being the absence of the element of debt. It is apparent that these determinations were reached after considering the facts at hand only in accordance with the case law under Section 444, Title 18 of the U.S. Code, which holds that debt is the basic element of peonage. It is further disclosed that only in a negligible number of instances was consideration given to the claims in light of people being held in involuntary servitude, regardless of the existence of a debt. And there were plenty of people held throughout the South in peonage. If you got arrested for loitering, funny, it used to happen around the time the crops came in. You got arrested for any petty, minor crime or a more serious crime. But loitering meant you didn't have any money in your pocket and the police decided to stop you. Or the police decided to stop you because the farmers needed some labor. They would lease you out to the plantation owners and also to the coal mines in northern Alabama in particular. U.S. Steel was getting coal from that area. They were heavily engaged in slavery. So slavery continued after the Civil War. The last prosecution for slavery under this U.S. Attorney General Circular 3591, December 12th of 1941, the last prosecution was in early 1942, a case in Texas. Why was this done immediately after the attack by Japan? And that's what we're going to talk about today. Why was it done? Because the Japanese were, like many countries in the world, attacking the United States for America's caste system, which they called politely segregation here. Legal in the South and by law, de facto in the North. We lawyers call it de jure segregation, which is by law, and de facto in practice or in fact in the North. So that was the reason they didn't want to give Japan a tool. My father, during World War II, was in the U.S. Army Counterintelligence Corps. And one of his first assignments was to infiltrate an organization called the Black Dragons, which was a black pro-Japanese organization organized by Japanese sympathizers here in the United States. It never really got off its ground. It never really got anywhere, but it was here. Then if we go farther in time, a few years later, we'll understand why the Brown versus Board of Education decision was entered into right after the war, within 9 years in 1954. It was about the fight against communism. It wasn't about really school integration. In fact, the decision, and there are actually two Brown decisions, but the final decision said the implementation would happen with all deliberate speed. I know of no other legal decision where the remedy was all deliberate speed. Every other decision that I've read takes effect immediately, now. But this decision was never fully implemented. In fact, to this day, and we live in 2018, that was 1954, most black kids and most white kids go to segregated schools. It was about the fight against communism. And as the world was breaking away from the colonial system after World War II, Great Britain and France had been weakened, and Asia and Africa in particular were fighting for their independence from colonial domination. That's what the war was about. That's why school integration was pushed in the early 50s by liberals. It's what the great historian Derek Bell calls interest conversion. And he has a book talking about this process by which the fight against segregation was in the interest of the United States in its war against communism. We'll continue this discussion a little bit later. I don't want to overload you guys, and we'll talk about the civil rights movement next, in the next volume. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Click the thumbs button if you like, and if you're interested in this discussion further, and I hope you are, of course, because I get excited talking about history and politics and culture and technology, and eventually we're going to get to some jazz too. But we are going to look at how the civil rights struggle also was aided by the convergence of interest between white business interests in the North and the fight against communism and our struggle for liberation here in our home, the United States of America. Talk to you guys later. Have a good day. Have a good evening. Until next time.